Hey everyone, this is Olay from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast.
Good
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls all over the world. Welcome one, welcome all to another Sunday of LYS Free Student Mentoring. As always, here with my good friend Festus and Olay, I am Olay Shorunke. Hope you're doing great on this Sunday afternoon. Festus, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. Just enjoying, like you said, but also I had, my niece and nephew over, and so all four kids was over here through the weekend, and that was good. That was good just to see them play with each other and stuff like that. And then also just, it's a lot though. It's a lot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, we was talking yesterday, and every 5 minutes I heard, Hey, y'all I said, get all the toys together. Get them all.
Yeah,
man. Hey, man, they wilded over there.
Yeah, man. That's again, sometimes it might feel like a burden, but at the same time, when you realize like, that's the future that's running around, you know what I'm saying? It's all fun, you know what I'm saying? So that's some good stuff. That's pretty much it for me, man.
Awesome. And we're so blessed. We're so honored to have someone who I've looked up to for a long time. Another one of my co-teachers in the trenches with me at the school that I work with. So honored he was able to make a couple of minutes to drop in and bless us with some of his wisdom. My very, very good friend, Jamar Crawford. Crawford, how you doing today?
Hey, thank you. I'm doing all right. I appreciate that intro.
Awesome, for sure, absolutely, man. I love, man, that mic. We need that mic quality. Trust me, Festus will tell you. We've been searching for some. I like that mic quality you got there.
I appreciate it.
All right, so let's talk about. This is part 2. Actually, we're gonna be talking about what we talked about, continuing on what we talked about last week. And so to do that, I'm just gonna play that video just to show you where we started from last week. Let me make sure I'm sharing my sound. We should be.
To teachers gathering outside the White House sums up Matt Damon's appreciation for them. He takes photos of them. So I ask him,
do you have a message for the teachers?
Hang in there, yeah.
Judging by this turnout, they are. This Save the Schools rally features big names in the education community.
Free public education.
Diane Ravitch, Jonathan Kozel.
What teachers make.
The teacher turned poet Taylor Molly.
Objection overruled.
And while his name speaks for itself, Matt Damon says his own fame is because of teachers.
I just want them to know that there are millions and millions of regular people who deeply appreciate what they do with their lives and know that this country would be a mess without them. So that's what I.
Do you have a personal teacher in your mind that you think of when you say this?
I have a lot of them. Here's one of them. This is my history teacher from high school, Larry.
So I asked Larry Aronson myself, what's the secret?
The teachers had ownership over their curriculum. We owned our curriculum. We had a huge say in what we were doing, and not without evaluation. We were assessed, but we had a great voice in what we were doing as teachers.
And today they're trying to find that voice.
Whose schools? Our schools! But we're standing up for every child's right to a quality public education.
As this Boston mom and teacher puts it, before introducing her famous son.
I see your bulge.
Damon tells me what he was thinking about when he wrote this speech.
I feel more and more appreciative every day for the teachers that I had, and the older I get, the more it really sinks in as I get older how lucky I was, and I want that for every kid.
Which is why he's here today, he says.
We thank you, and we will always have your back.
And why he plans to be here tomorrow for tomorrow's teachers. Brittany Morehouse, 9 News Now.
All right, so that was our conversation that we had last week. That video was from about 8 years ago, and we got into the subject of teachers and what are they going through? What does today's teacher have that our teachers did not? Right. And what are some of the things that we can do from an LYS standpoint? Obviously here at LYS, we talk about be, know, do, being, knowing, doing. Being, what are your values, principles?
Character.
And character. Knowing, where are your resources? Where do you have access to your resources, and how do you get access to them? And doing, how do you execute with excellence? And so we're focusing on that when we're talking about our educators. Real quick, D Hill, how you doing today? How you doing this Sunday?
Man, I'm good, my guy. How y'all boys doing over there?
This is awesome. This is the trifecta at the school.
What you
that's
said?
Causing all the trouble.
Okay. Reverend Crawford on here, I see.
I love it. I love it. All right. Let me trifecta at the school. All right. So as always, folks, if you want to get in contact with us, LYS students, _LYS. That's on Instagram, IG. On Facebook, Laddering Your Success. Just type that in the search bar, get access to our content, any workshops or anything that we're doing, anything new that we're pushing out, that's where you can find it. You can find it on Facebook. Same thing for YouTube, Laddering Your Success. I know we're still working on opening up to getting that on YouTube Live. That's one of the things we got coming up soon. So in due time, we'll get access to that. You know, it's so funny. We started from humble beginnings in January, and just to see the growth has been awesome. So if you were there with us in January and you see where we are now, just imagine where we're going to be in the next couple of months. Thank you for your support. On TikTok, LYS Be No Do. You know what I'm about to say. Look at him right here. Look at him. TikTok, we coming for you. We coming for you. I want to eat your apples, your oranges, your pears, your grapes. I want to eat them all. I want to eat all your fruits. We're coming for you. All right. If you want to send us an email, info@ladderingyyoursuccess.com. And lastly, oh, not last. I think we'll have one more after this. Discord, it's coming soon, right? Got my lady over here talking about it's coming. Got Andrew McCutcheon looking at his watch like, man, how long? Man, I got to ask the Lord, when's this Discord come? The Discord is coming, all right? One thing we are very happy about is the ability to be able to engage with all the people that we service, right? And so that's one thing that we're really excited about is the Discord. And lastly, if you want to support Laddering Your Success, if you love what we're doing, if you like what you're seeing, please, on Cash App, Laddering Your Success, on Cash App, $, Laddering Your Success, $1, $2, $3, it doesn't matter. We will appreciate anything you give us. Did you know that if every person in the world gave us $1, we'd be good for a very long time? Oh, let me share this real quick. We're still here. All right. So, we talked about Matt Damon. We talked about what does today's teacher have to do that our teachers did not. All right. And so we mentioned things like these days, teachers are more therapists, counselors. There are more problem solvers, fixers, parents. We talked about a lot of the things that a teacher will do on an average day, right, to help their students. You know, it's funny, I even read a Chronicle. The Chronicle sent me a little message thing about, on average, how much teachers spend out of their own pockets, right, to help their students. And, you know, it was funny. I was talking to Hill about this. I think, I don't know if we talked about it on the call or somewhere else, but we said, I think Hill told me that they brought the tax credit down to $200. Is that correct, Hill?
Yeah, it was like 200. You were saying what, 300?
Well, yeah, I used to think it was 300. I know it was earlier on when I first started teaching, but then I think you said they brought it down to 2.
Yeah,
and then,
or like 250 or something like that. A false prophecy, boy.
Yeah, exactly.
This man got high hopes, Festus. He got high hopes.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the article said somewhere around 700 to 1,000 is what teachers spend on average. 700 to 1,000 is what teachers spend on average. And it's so crazy because I did a training, a little PD, professional development, on Saturday. And it's like, they have all these cool things, but it's like the things that we really need, they don't really have. And so we sit there trying to ask these questions and like, no, we don't have that, but we have this. If you have access to the internet for your students, it's like, students don't have access to the internet. So I can't do that. I need to give them something tangible that they can work with, right? So those are a lot of the things that we discussed about and kind of talked about what today's teachers has to do that our teachers really did not have to. And then we asked this question, right? Are we setting the example we truly want our students to follow? And we're actually going to continue along in those lines, because I think this is a very important thing to talk about. Are we setting the example we truly want our students to follow? Okay. Yes. And I think we talked about be no do. We incorporated that a little bit. And I think this is where we are going to start with today. So we talked about what values, character traits, and principles should teachers have in 2022. I want to go back to that question first, but then think about the second question in the back of your mind. If we live with values, character traits, and principles that go against those that we suggested, should they still, they being the teachers, teach them to students? Okay, so let's start with that first question.
Yeah, can you go a little deeper into that?
The second question? Or the first question?
The second question.
Okay. If we live with values, character traits, and principles that go against those we suggested, should they still teach them? I think one of the big issues that we see these days is you've seen a lot of things with, trans this, just so many different aspects, right? And so many different ways of teaching. CRT is very popular these days. And like we mentioned the other day, a lot of these things, people are still, I'm one of them, I'm still kind of ignorant to a lot of these concepts and a lot of these things that are happening because, they're not really prevalent in my school, but I know that they're prevalent in a lot of other places. And so the question I'm stating is, if you are someone who's living in a way that many, or some would say, are against, or goes against their values or their principles or their characters or their character traits, their character values.
And go ahead. Go ahead.
Should they still teach them in a certain way, or should they bend or flex those rules based off of their own life, their own lifestyle?
So what you're saying, let me make sure I'm being clear on this.
Yeah.
Let's say a teacher has certain values, character, and principles. And you're saying, should they teach them to a student, even if the student doesn't agree with the teacher's values, character, and principles? Is that what you're saying?
Even if they go against, see, now that's
are you saying society as a whole? Let's say,
I think society as a whole.
Yeah,
society as a whole.
Society has these values, character, and principles.
They're
trying to put them on students, and the teacher might be in disagreement with that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
Because I definitely think that there is a huge difference between those two things. That's why I wanted to get clear, right? And I definitely want to hear Daniel and Jamar's input on that, because I think the thing that's very interesting is a lot of these things that are new, they're actually new concepts that aren't actually quite proven, but they're being pushed as if they're truth and fact. And people are being punished for not acquiescing. And so to me, that's where I struggle, because I'm like, people haven't even had time to actually research or digest any of this stuff, to look through it themselves. It's just like, oh, if you didn't pick our side believes this, something's wrong with you. Like, and I'll give an example, a light example, but so there is an organization who adopted certain policies, right? And these policies were relatively new policies. Well, this is an American organization, right? It's primarily made up of American organizations. So they took a vote, and that vote split the organization, right? Some people said, hey, we're going to keep doing things the way we've been doing it. This other side said, hey, we're going to do it differently because we believe this now, right? So then the organizations started going throughout the rest of the world and saying, hey, we took this vote. Who do you side with? Right? So there was an African organization that was very similar to the other organization. And they said, look, we're going to keep doing things the way we've been doing things. So then people said, see these, you damn dirty apes. You know what I mean? Like, hey, why didn't you side with us? And I simply said, these people are in a different culture, a different society, right? They should have a right to vote on things the way that they want to vote on things according to their culture. It's only appropriate. That is actually the baseline for diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Is to let people judge things, let people operate based off of their particular culture and not try to force something on them, right? So I said, you're operating from a narrow Western point of view, right? And then I would then call the bigot and a supporter of bigots. And I said, listen, my question to you all is, have you actually talked to those people in that community? Have you actually just tried to write a letter and reach out to them or email them to get their perspective? I was then told they have the facts already. I don't have the facts. And I'm like, okay, what did the people say when you reached out to them? Right? Like, this is a real simple line of thinking. And then somebody else chimed in and said, well, you know, this is equivalent to white supremacy, and I'm a white supremacist as a Black man who's technically we're first generation in this country, right? So to see this line of reasoning that people have, I'm like, I don't understand this at all. But so I want to get Jamar and Daniel's perspective, like Bigsby. You know what I'm saying? So definitely want to get you guys' perspective, because you guys are in the classroom actually teaching students, and y'all are seeing all this stuff happening in society. So I want to hear more than.
Hey man, that was a good one, bro. I ain't gonna lie, because me and my homeboy was talking today, and he's passionate about something, but he actually says stuff that actually makes sense. You know what I'm saying? He broke stuff down and actually brought proof to talk about it. But his thing, I actually like talking to people like that because they have proof about everything. Most people, they just hollering with no proof, no understanding, and just screaming. And first of all, school's not about me putting all my values on you. I'm here to teach you. I'm supposed to educate you like how you talked last week. Like your kid can talk and cuss out all these people. But the problem is the kid can't add. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, your school's about to be this. Now, I might say Jesus like 1,000 times, but that's just me. You know what I'm saying? That mud gonna come out. But school's about to tell the truth about history, tell the truth about this, tell what actually happened, and all this. It's not making up here's the thing. If I believe something, that's my belief. That's not your belief. That's not their belief. I mean, they can choose to make that belief, but I'm not gonna call you a bigot. Like, I didn't call y'all this stuff, man. It's just like, these people trying to make school to be a place where we supposed to, like, convert people or something like that, bro.
You know, that's crazy. That's great. I want to hear Jamar before I give any more input.
Well, it's so much to unpack, man. It's so much to unpack. And if we're talking about policies, well, first we have to realize that public education is not what's best for the student. That's a mask. It's more so political agendas. And so if we're talking about policies and things of that nature, like the example that Festus gave, first and foremost, when trying to roll this out and ask people to adopt these policies, they should come with the purpose. Well, what is the purpose? How does this impact our students? What is the benefit? How does this contribute to the system that is already in place? How does it improve it? And then with that purpose, they need to come with research-based evidence to support their findings of how it improves, if that is the case. And then after that is presented, then they need to communicate with all stakeholders, not just the leader of the district or superintendent. Talk to the teachers, the people of the community, to get that feedback so that decision can be made as a collective. So it's just so much to unpack with that. But so yeah, I didn't know which route we wanted to take.
I think a couple key things that you said was, you have to show evidence of this thing working and the benefits of this thing working. And I think that's something that's really, really missing right now. Right now is like, everybody's like, yo, we going in this direction. And it's like, wait a second, why? It's like, right. Don't ask no questions. What's wrong with you? You know what I'm saying? Like, we just, you know, so I think that was big.
Right. And I definitely do believe in trying something new, but also if you want to implement certain things or values or whatever the case may be, hey, let's pick a control group and kind of see, well, let's try this out and see how it works. Let's monitor it, collect some data. Is it improving? Is it not working? And then, report those findings to the powers that be, and then, go from there. So, yeah, I know which route we want to take with this topic because there's so much to unpack.
Well, yeah, man, you could just go, man. Like once that's one thing we try to do is we try to have a very loose script based off of just like, hey, a couple questions, or Leo throw out the questions, and then we just like to hear the feedback and get people's answers. So we're not trying to necessarily come to some like this is it, right? We want to just hear all sides, because I think that's one of the key things is like people's ability to think for themselves. Critical thinking is to try to get as many facts as possible and hear as many perspectives as possible before coming to a decision. Because again, something, they had that saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And that's not necessarily always true, right? To just say, oh, what's good for this community is good for this community. I think I can think of many things that actually backfire in terms of like our community. And when I say our community, I'm just thinking like young Black men, because we was all young Black men at one point, you know what I mean? Like just the
Speak for yourself. I'm still young.
Well, I meant younger Black men, you know what I'm saying? Younger Black men, and I think what's that?
No, I'm just playing.
Nah, you good, bro. You good. But yeah, that's just a couple thoughts. But go ahead, continue, please.
No, I just think when it comes to making decisions or adopting certain values or policies and things of that nature, I think all the information needs to be available so that, that community can make the best informed decision that is best for, their population, the students that they have to serve. So I definitely do believe in that. Because not all people are the same. So coming up with a cookie cutter solution does not work for everybody. And on a smaller scale, that's what I feel like we're experiencing on our campus. Hey, these are the policies that we have set in place. The problem is the purpose of the policies contradicts what's best for the students, but they're saying they want what's best for the students as well. But the systems set in place does not allow us to do what's best for the students, because, hey, the system in place says we have to do X, Y, and Z. But what's best for my student in the field, front line, in the moment, is ABC. And if I do ABC, then I'm getting slapped on the wrist because the system says do X, Y, and Z. Although me doing ABC worked out best for my student. So I know I'm speaking in code, kind of. It may be hard to follow.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, because we have people who are parents, we have people who aren't teachers that listen. If you could break it down, an example of like where a policy conflicted with what you thought was best as a teacher.
No problem. So from an educator standpoint, they're like, hey, our main goal is we want to close the achievement gaps within our students to increase their success to graduate, right? Those are our long-term goals.
That sounds reasonable.
And I'm like, okay, fine. So we want to close the achievement gaps. Our students are, when they come to us, at different levels, right? So I teach 5th grade. I might have a student that come to me prepared and ready to do the skills that are needed to do at a 5th grade level. I also might have a 5th grade student that is on, say, a 3rd grade or a 2nd grade level. The two are not capable of completing the exact same task.
100%.
It can't function at the same level, but based on the systems that are set in place by the district, which are, you have to teach this concept within 2 days. Now, here's the thing. I don't know about you guys, but when I learn something new, sometimes it takes me longer than 2 days to retrieve or fully commit to my knowledge of what to do. I might have surface level knowledge, but do I fully know what I'm doing? I do not. And so when I look at those 2 examples, my 5th grade student that is on level and ready for the 5th grade, he or she may do very well with that, me teaching that concept in 2 days. But my student that is on that 3rd grade level is going to begin to drown because there are already pre-existing gaps there. And all I'm doing is taking new information and laying it on top of the existing gaps.
Wow.
And so that contradicts the goal of what they say. They want us to close the achievement gaps, right? So what I do and go against the grain, I say, okay, this student is struggling. What I'm going to do, I'm going to provide this student with the foundational knowledge and skills that are needed to be successful on this 5th grade content that I have to teach them. I'm not just going to teach them the 5th grade concept, because if you have a foundation that is already cracked and you build on top of that foundation, whatever you build on top of that foundation is going to come crumbling down. Or if you see that foundation is cracked, before I build on top of that, I'm going to go and solidify that foundation and make sure it is solid. So no matter what I build on top of it, I know it has the potential to stay standing, if that makes sense. But because I do that and I implement that, again, I'm doing what's best for that 3rd grader in that moment, while pushing that 5th grade, that 5th grade student that's on the 5th grade level, letting him do things that are on his level. I'm getting slapped on the wrist for that because I'm not providing a service that is cookie cutter to my students, but every student have a different need, if that makes sense.
No, that makes a ton of sense, And it's crazy because it's like, I don't think anybody would argue against the position that you're proposing, is that, hey, listen, I'm going to help this 5th grader by teaching this in 2 days. But then I'm going to help this other 5th grader who has the, again, they just don't have the material down pat yet. I might take a little bit longer with them, or I might review or go over some stuff that they previously did to, again, make sure that they know what they're talking about. That's huge. That's huge.
And so a thing that you said, and this is another reason why I get in trouble, when you like teaching this concept in 2 days, I don't believe in that depending on what the concept is, because just because you taught something in 2 days doesn't mean the student learned it. And what does it look like if a student learned it? Have they just learned to do process and steps, or did they really learn the concept in depth? And I tend to teach in depth versus, hey, this is step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay, you know it. Because everyone in the education system gets stressed when it comes time for testing. And I feel like the reason is we so worried about teaching everything that we have to teach that we're not taking the time to really see if the child or student is learning what we're so-called teaching. And that's the difference. I focus on what the student is learning, not necessarily what I've taught, because I can teach all day long till I'm blue in the face. The kid can still not understand it.
That's powerful, because there's this, so there in the Greek, there's this word of knowledge, which is gnosis. And then they have another word called epignosis, which is like surface level or around the knowledge, right? And so it's funny because it's like, to have certainty, and the way we put it in the English language is, do you know that you know? Or we'll say, do you know that you know that you know? And it's like, a lot of us don't know that we know anything, right? And so it makes me wonder, as, as a person who's not in the classroom teaching students, it makes me wonder, like, okay, from a leadership perspective, right? Because obviously this is just kind of rolling downhill, right? They're telling you to do what their boss told them to do, told their boss, you know what I'm saying? And like you said, you're on the front line, you're in the, kind of in the battlefield. From a leadership perspective, what type of outcome do you think you're going to have? And to me, I think that's the real question about, like, the legacy of education, right? Because, you know, a lot of people dog Texas for like, yo, Texas is like 14th from the bottom or something like that in terms of education. And it's like, well, if this is what we're pushing classroom teachers to do we ever think about what it's going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if that's what we're pushing classroom teachers to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's that legacy look like? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, Olay, because it seems like Olay was getting ready to go in.
Yeah. So
he had to clear his throat. Everybody back up.
No. I mean, I'm just happy Jamark is on, because, you know, there's a reason why when I saw the two of them, I said, look, this is the crew, the three, you know, the two guys we're always getting in trouble with. Crawford did a wonderful job of explaining something. And I just want to start off by saying this right now. This is very important and a very important moment. If you are a parent and you are listening to this, understand this very clearly. Please, your teachers are trying. They are trying. Your teachers are risking their credibility. They're risking their record. They're risking so much to make sure that they do what is in the best interest of students. And, you know, unfortunately, you'll get a lot of parents who'll come in. You see it all the time. And there are, you know, there's so many different things that happen behind the scenes that we don't know about, but so many parents will come in and they'll want to point at teachers and say, you're doing this, you're not. Understand this very, 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 very important point. Your teachers are trying. Crawford clearly explained the scenario that we're currently going through, where I'll tell you right now, I do not care what they say. I'm going to do what's in the best interest of my students. The analogy that Crawford gave of building a house with a weak foundation is absolutely true. I do not care what your pacing says. I do not care. I don't, because I can't teach it if the student does not have the foundational understanding of the concept that is required in order to learn or to be learned or to be taught that new particular subject or that new content. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. And we've seen the same thing over and over. What's that? I always tell my kids, math is all about the what? The patterns, right? It's the pattern that we've seen continuously, right? So let's get this. Second thing, what schools are wanting is they want essentially all schools to be at the same level of mediocrity. That's one of the biggest things I've noticed.
Wow.
Districts want all schools to be at the same level of mediocrity. We had a meeting. We got called out because our scores were lower than the average, than what the average school in the district got. The average school in the district got close to 50%.
Wow.
So you're mad because we're not at 50%? Oh, so if we get to 50, y'all are going to work to make it to 100? Oh, y'all are just mad because we're not at 50. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. So it took me a while to figure this out, but I'm completely accepting of the fact that I'm going to do what's in the best interest of my students. And this is what I said. I said, until you come, and let me get it for you so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to get the purple one because that's a unique color. Until you come and you take the expo marker from my hands, I'm going to do what's in the best interest of my students. If you feel that strongly to where you can come in my class and kick me out of my class and take the expo marker out of my hand for doing what's in the best interest of my students, you are more than welcome to do that. I will gladly take a free paycheck till May.
Dang, you're like, look over my dead body. You know.
Go ahead. But this is what we're talking about. This is what teachers are doing. This is what teachers are doing.
You know,
they're sacrificing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying it makes me think of all the pressure that's on educators. That is like, you know, parents are like, did you do this for my student, or what did you do for my student? And, you know, as a teacher, you got 20 kids in there. You know what I'm saying? 25 kids in there. You know what I'm saying? In some schools, you got 30 kids in there. You know what I'm saying? And they're struggling, and it's like you got pressure from the parent who wants you to be more relational, and actually in some cases wants you to be like a second parent to the child. And then you got the school who's saying, hey, look, they don't need to learn all that. You know what I'm saying? Just focus on this pacing guide and teach what's in the pacing guide, which I get the point of, like, yo, you gotta, you know, you're trying to, from a state level, from a high level, you're trying to make a cohort. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to make it to where this group of students all knows this material. I get that. But at the same time, and this is where I think differentiation comes in, and creating tools for differentiation. That's why I'm so happy what we're doing at Ladder and Success, even with our MVP. For those who don't know, we made an app for teachers for lesson planning that actually helps teachers to differentiate the material too, in terms of documenting the differentiation, but also speeds up their lesson plan time so that way they can take time to make the differentiations. Because it's like, oh, if you're going to go over this material, maybe if you explain it this way to this student that is not as advanced, they can grasp that same material too. You know what I mean? But again, that has to be in the educator's hands, you know, and that's why, going back to that Matt Damon video that we watched earlier, where like he was like, yo, we had power of our curriculum. And now when you look at these curriculums that are coming out, and even the supplemental resources that are coming out to the curriculum, oftentimes, I don't know, because again, I'm not in the classroom. You know, I don't know if that's adequate to help some of these students. So definitely want to hear perspectives on that.
I feel like what you said in the Matt Damon video is very, very applicable to today's time, as far as teachers not having autonomy in how to apply the content. And so real recent, starting off the school year, you know, there's a science experiment that I was completing, and it is on task with the curriculum of what needs to be taught, but the specific way that I did the experiment is completely different from what was provided by the district. Same exact concepts, just different. You know, there's so many different experiments you can do to observe the same thing that's taking place, right? And so because I took that route, I received so much backlash and saying that from the leaders above me, you know, my content specialists, you can't do that. And so I asked why. And so the response that was given to me is that this is not the experiment that is listed that or suggests that you should do by the district. And that right there is what I feel is the problem. We're taking these suggestions that are given to us in these resources, and we're saying you have to use this, you are limited to this, you have to do that. And I'm like, well, hey, there's nothing wrong with that, but I want to do something else. I'm trying to say it in a way to where I have no malicious intent. So I'm trying to choose my words carefully. But basically what's going on, the science experiments were boring just as presented.
Yeah.
And so I did something different than what was suggested. And the kids absolutely loved it. And they got the point. But again, you can't do that, is what I'm being told, because it's not the exact experiment within the resources, even though we are observing the exact same thing.
I'm sorry, because this is just making me like, it's really almost hurting my head. But isn't that your job as a teacher to actually, like, isn't that your job to be like, yo, whatever you're saying they need to learn, I'm going to make sure they learn it. Like, that should be the goal.
Right, but see, we lose sight of that because we now focus on, okay, this person is doing something different. The problem is we're not seeking to understand.
Yeah.
You must seek to understand,
Ooh.
okay, this person is doing something different. Let me watch, let me see. And then if I have doubt, let me have a conversation. Hey, what was your thought process behind this? And when you take that approach, you can see if, hey, this is exactly the same. It looks completely different, but it's exactly the same. The content is being taught. The students are enjoying themselves. Okay, stamp of approval. But instead, hey, this looks different from what everybody else is doing. It doesn't matter if you're teaching the same thing. The way you're doing it is different, and I don't approve. So what you just did was discouraged me from putting in that effort of thinking outside of the box. I now have to go into that mentality of there's one mind here in play, and I have to follow that mind. And if I think different than that mind, then I'm a problem. But see, that's how we stunt innovation. Because someone to grow and improve, someone has to think outside of the box, whether that's a student. Like I'm teaching a content, a student would think about it like this. I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's not easy for me to do, but if that worked for you, share it. Because that might work better for somebody else.
You know, and that's something I see Olay's posting a question here, but that's something that, man, you said something that's very, 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 very valuable for today. And I think I don't want it to go over people's heads. And for me, it's something I've thought about. And, you know, back in the day, you know, your teacher would say, hey, do this math problem. You would say, oh, yeah, let me whip out my calculator. And they're like, you're never going to have a calculator in real life just all the time. You need to learn it in your head. And I get that what they were doing in terms of, hey, look, it's a critical thinking skill type thing. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, like you said, the creativity and innovation that says, let me utilize the resources available to me, and then I could go do this a different way. Yes, teach me the material. And I think that's more of a cultural approach, right? Of just coming to like, yeah, listen, homie, I get that you do have the resource, but what happens if somebody's trying to get over on you and that calculator is not available? You know, you need to be able to do some quick math in your head type thing. So to me, I think it's more of a cultural approach of how you explain a thing to a child. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, now when you look at it, you know, here we are 10, 20, 30 years later from, and primarily the invention of technology and the injection of technology into the classroom. And then we talk about how many Black people aren't in STEM, how many Black people aren't in tech, how many, you see what I'm saying? How many minorities are not in STEAM? And I'm wondering if these educational approaches where they're stifling the innovation of the student in terms of looking at the material are the reasons for that. Because why? One thing as an entrepreneur, you have to be very creative. You know what I'm saying? And if you look at all these tech startups that have been coming up over the last 15, 20 years, right? A lot of this stuff is relatively new. It's 15, 20 years old. You know what I'm saying? But now it's completely dominating sectors. You know what I'm saying? They said recently that Amazon was responsible for 56% of all online sales. 56% of all online sales. That is huge. That is huge. And when you think about that, the young student who says, well, I don't need to go to college, I can learn to drop ship, but that's not in the content. That's not in the curriculum. You see what I'm saying? And so to me, this is where I look at it and I'm like, dude, is our desire to do this cookie cutter kind of social experiment stifling the innovation in these communities of color, right? You know what I mean? And so anyway, this is just some stuff running through my head because Jamar, you got me thinking about like a lot, you know what I'm saying? But no, Olay, you had the question posted, you were gonna go over something else. So yeah, go ahead.
I think if there's one thing that I am in favor of, or one thing I've learned to appreciate, it's even as an adult, I can still enjoy things like I did when I was a little kid. certain experiences. You know, when they talk about certain smells that you can remember from when you were a kid, like a Pop-Tart, or, you know, breakfast in the morning, or how a T-Shack building smelled, you know, when you're in elementary or middle or high school. And I think about all the teachers who gave me a platform or saw that even though I was acting like a fool, like a crazy person, that was just my unique talent. And that was just my way of expressing myself and learning, and he or she would curtail something a little bit to help me, and how far those things go. The reason why I posted that question, are we setting the example we want our students to follow, is think about what Jamark said. Jamark said that specialists and admin can do to teachers what teachers can do to stunt the dreams of young children. And so if you see the levels to that, a lot of times when you're in class, you'll see a student who, you know, says things like, I'll never get this right. And, you know, God forbid a teacher ever came to a student and was like, yeah, you're right, you're never going to get it. Right. Or you have the teacher who says things like, no, you're not going, you just don't get it yet. Or have we tried this? Have we tried that? So think about that. We are admins and specialists can stunt the creativity, like we've all said, of teachers the same way that teachers can do that to our students. And I think it's a powerful point. It's a powerful point because when we think about be no do, we talk about what are your values, what are your principles, what are your character traits. And I've said it for the past couple of weeks. I'll keep saying it. The biggest thing I've learned is, and I think the reason why that's such an important question is, when you have a fine determination, when you have determined your values, your principles, and your character traits, you don't compromise from them. You don't compromise from them. And that's what I've seen with a lot of the folks at the school. And I think that's where we get into that trouble. And so to ask that question, I would say proudly, yes. I think that when teachers do get in trouble, when teachers have to get reported for certain things, not the bad things, but for doing things that they seem or that they deem to be in the best interest of their students, I think they are living out that inner child, the inner creative who says, I don't care what you have to say about that. What did we say last week? We said our students, the way a lot of these districts see their students, if they don't see them as dollar signs because attendance is dependent on, or funding is depending on attendance, they just see a student ID number, right? They don't see the kid's birthday. They don't see the kid whose apartment just burned down last week, and that's the reason why he didn't do too good on the exam. They don't see trauma that the kids are dealing with. They don't see a lot of these things. These are a lot of the things that teachers are dealing with. So that's why I said what I said to parents earlier. Your teachers are trying. Even if your teacher does the bare minimum, your teacher is trying. In 2022, the bare minimum is a lot. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Trust me, they paying. They hurting. So, you know, that was a big thing. A couple other things. And by the way, I think this may be a 3-weeker, Festus.
Yeah, because,
you know, one of the things that we mentioned here, I talked to one of the 6th grade teachers the other day, and she was like, she looked at me, she said, what did you give us? What did you give us? What is that? And she was talking about the 5th graders that we had who are now in the 6th grade. And she was saying, why? Why? Because she was saying a lot of them can't do those things. He'll say, we warned them.
Hey, we did then.
I tried to tell you.
I tried to tell you. And the Bible says, no, I'm playing.
and so, you know, it just reminded me of what Crawford was talking about, what we all were talking about, because that's what happens, right? If you try to go along and just pull the kids along and say, hey guys, even though you can't do this, hey, this is where we're on. This is what we're going to do. That's what happens. And so guess what? Math is all about the what? The patterns. That's the pattern that continues on and on. They're going to get to 7th grade. And they're going to look at us at the 6th grade teacher and say, what's that? that kid's going to get to 8th grade. It's the same thing and on and on and on. So when your teachers are fighting and we're saying we're not doing that, that's why we're doing. We're literally trying to stop that. All right. Because it's like, you may not remember anything. You may forget all about me. But if you can get over that hump that will allow you got to understand things about multiplication, division. A lot of these concepts are so necessary for so many things, for so many different functions that are required in math and science in later years, that it just ruins, it depletes any energy from a student of trying to learn something. And I'll give you a quick example because I don't want to talk too much. I forgot how to read a map. I knew I was taught somewhere, like a latitude and longitude line. I knew I was taught somewhere. I just forgot. And sophomore year of high school, I had a teacher. I still remember his name. He was so mad. Huh?
I said that map quest. No, I'm messing with you. Go ahead.
Oh, he was so mad at another student who couldn't read a map. And he just so happened to call on me. And I was like, I don't know how to read a map either. And he got so angry. And looking back now, I get it. But at that moment, he could have ruined any zeal I had for learning about that stuff. But I remember thinking in my head, hey, bro, why don't you just teach me? Why don't you just shut up and show me how to read a map?
Yeah.
So then I can read a map and you can continue on your job.
Yeah.
What's the big issue? You know what I'm trying to say? So I say all that to say, like, there's definitely a lot, but your teachers, your educators, they are definitely trying, trust me. And so this is one of those things we need to keep in mind. Any final thoughts, comments, anyone wanted to throw in there?
No, I just wanted to thank Jamark for coming in, and then again, always Daniel being the cut, eating some. but yeah,
just chilling.
Laying
on the cut.
From the 5th low, brother. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's it.
No, wonderful. I'm just looking at the small notes that I took. I was like, oof, man, we going in. Yeah, this is gonna be a 3-week. I think we're gonna have to conclude this next week because there's still one other major important thing that I think we should talk about next week when it comes to educators and just the current state of the environment, our current affairs. All right. So, Festus, do you want to do the outro?
Yeah. So again, thank you guys for watching, for joining us on live. For those who are listening to this later, thanks so much for listening to this later. And listen, I want to thank again, Jamark, Daniel, Olainka. There are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no legitimate excuse for not getting an education. We are Laddering Your Success. Please check us out, www.ladderingyoursuccess.com. All right. Thanks so much. You guys have a wonderful week.
Be blessed. Have a good one. Oh, you're still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS Podcast.